check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. You know what app I use on my phone more than any other app, besides the podcast app, to listen to this here podcast? I use onX. onX Maps is the most comprehensive mapping system for hunters on the market today. I use it all the time. When I was in New Mexico, I was looking at 40,000 acres of ranch that I needed to learn. I flip open onX and just start studying the map. When I'm riding trails, I put the tracking app on. It helps me get around in strange country. I could mark water sources, food sources, bear sign, just all kinds of options within onX. You need to check out onX Maps by going to houndsmanxp.com. Click on the link on our sponsor page. You'll go right to onX Maps, and when you check out, enter the code HXP20 and you will get 20% off of your order. Know where you stand with onX. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And this episode, we're just going to skip the teaser and jump right into it because there was so many different fun things that we covered in this conversation that I couldn't pick out any one particular thing to put as a teaser in the intro. And it's just a fun conversation to have. This is the other one that I recorded after some dachshund trials last summer, and was able to do this one as a group with Rich Moats and Rick Thompson, and they've been friends of mine for a while, and it was cool to be able to kind of switch things up a little bit and do this with all three of us at the same time in the same place. And so, like I said, we're just going to jump right in, and you can hear us have fun talking about a whole bunch of different stuff, from flying Harrises and casts to, of course, Dachshunds, to what it's like running a falconry business in Rich's case, and all kinds of good stuff. So enjoy. Here we go. I'll go ahead and just start talking about the elephant in the room here, and go ahead and congratulate the two champions. I mean, it has been kind of a weird weekend being in the presence of such greatness. The winners of the respective dachshund trial days that they've competed here in their particular classes and whatnot, but. Anyway,
Jonathan, do you have any bigger headphones?
No.
My head just got enormous. These
are
really tight.
Once again, we just got done talking about how you and your first world problems, you need to just, get over it a little bit and, adjust. And
Fair
see,
enough.
champions and greatness, you should be able to adjust and always refine the needs of the moment, basically.
Fly by the seat of your pants.
Exactly. You should be able to always be able to adjust on the fly. And, that's what champions do.
All right, fair enough. That's what I'm going to do.
People are going to listen to this and just be like, God, these guys have either been in the sun way too long or they've had way too much to drink. And I guess we should go ahead and say both of those things have happened, probably. Yeah.
It's been a good day.
Yeah.
It's been a good weekend.
Yeah.
And it's not over. So
yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. People are probably going to hear from the the champion subjects also occasionally in the background. I mean, we have been around Dachshunds all weekend, so, Anyway, if anybody hears an occasional whine or bark, you don't know why.
I mean, really, they are the champions.
Yeah.
It's not us.
No, we just get to act like we're something special in the whole process, even though we do pretty much nothing in the equation, I guess. I mean, we do, get them trained and get them exposed to, to the things that they, to the game and all that kind of stuff, and teach them what they're supposed to do in a way. But from there, we're just kind of spectators, I guess. So,
being honest, I'm not a great dog trainer. That dog honestly came out of the box knowing mostly what to do. Like, I dragged some rabbit parts around my backyard, and the first time we ever tried, she did it right. And she's been making me look pretty smart. But
pretty much the same for me too.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm anything special either, especially when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Sorry.
You buy quality animals, you don't have to do very much work.
It's very true. It's very true. Well, and that's why, certain breeders have the reputations that they have, good and bad to whatever degree and all that kind of stuff. But, I think that there's a lot to be said, and you both have heard me mention it several times, and it's been talked about several times, where there's really no substitute for getting animals from a breeder, dogs from a breeder that, they do the initial early steps, make our lives a lot easier.
Right.
Because, having had dogs from both sides of the fence on that, it's a lot less stressful whenever you get those that they already come kind of pre-made a little bit.
Yeah.
Have a good foundation.
And I think repetitions go a long way. Same with my birds. I'm not a great bird trainer either. I just hunt them a lot. And when you go hunting 4, 5, 6 days a week, every week, the dogs and the birds tend to figure out what we're doing and get pretty good at it. So
sure. I mean, repetition is the mother of learning, not only for us, but for them, for sure.
Right.
But anyway, so I guess, we're almost 5 minutes in here. I guess we should go ahead and just have you guys at least say hi and so that people know which voice is coming from which person, I guess. So
sure.
So go ahead and say hey real quick.
Yeah, so I'm Rick Thompson. I think I'm in my 6th or 7th falconry season from Millersport, Ohio. And last year was my first year hunting with a Dachshund. I've been messing with casts of Harris Hawks for a few years now, and that seems to be my jam, at least for now and probably a while. And now that I've added a dog to the mix, I don't know why anybody would want to do anything else really, but that's me.
Yeah.
I'm Rich Moats from Morgantown, West Virginia. Been doing falconry for about 4 years. Started in COVID, of course. Figured there was nothing better to do, so decided to get in falconry. Always had all kinds of animals and birds and everything, so just kind of fit. So I do aquarium maintenance for my job, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you've always pretty much ran with dogs for the most part, haven't you? Or like,
my first year I did not. No, I got Echo, which is a Decker Terrier. My second year.
I gotcha.
And,
okay.
Yeah.
I feel like you've been doing this longer. Maybe it's just because
I just get around apparently, and everybody just thinks
Does get around.
As Casey says, I'm like everywhere.
He's like the falconry moped. Everybody gets a ride.
I'm not sure that was exactly the analogy that I was thinking of, but
no free rides, man. No free rides. Everybody's got to pay.
Well, I was just kind of like, whenever I was up at Seth's and then like he's just like, yeah, we're gonna go to the Pennsylvania picnic or whatever and stuff, and then I show up and go down and
There's Rich.
He's just like,
He could go like 3 states away and, oh, but damn, there's Rich.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have like a freaking falconry meet in like Antarctica or some crap. And,
find a way.
Yeah, Rich would be down there. Freaking, I don't even know if there's even penguins down there, but he'd probably bring a penguin with him or something too, or some crap.
I think that's where penguins are, isn't it?
I don't know.
South Pole.
No idea.
The cool thing about Rich is Rich was one of those guys that when he was looking to become a falconer, he would go to all the meets and put all the work in, right? Like you're looking for out of somebody. And the neat thing is that now he's a general falconer and he still does all that. He wasn't, he wasn't really trying to pay dues necessarily. It's just, that's who he is. He likes to show up and be social and go hunting and yeah, that's how I knew Rich. Just going to all the meets.
Actually, the Ohio meet was one of my first. 2019.
Yeah.
Came and met everybody. And actually ended up hooking up with my sponsor. That ended up taking me on there. So it was like a 2-year journey of talking to people and just going to picnics and meets. And I was actually his first apprentice. So.
No, that's cool. That's where you met your sponsor and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, ideally, that's how that's supposed to work. I mean, we've talked about it a million times. Like, you're supposed to put in the legwork, and you're supposed to go through all these steps, and someone is supposed to see you put in that work. And then when you ask them, they're either going to say yes or no, but more than likely they're going to say yes because they've seen you put in that work. That's how it's supposed to really work. Right. At least in my humble opinion.
Rich still does it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just like going and seeing what everybody else does. And
yep. And now in this dachshund world even, go out there.
Yeah, unfortunately got sucked into that by going to one and seeing them actually do good work.
Oh.
So,
well, and I can't even remember when the first time was that I actually met you in person. Was it the terrier trial or was it before that? I don't even remember when the first time was that I met you.
Either the terrier trial or NAFA.
Was it?
I think it was a terrier trial 2 years ago.
I think it was.
And then NAFA out in Nebraska.
Yeah, is either that and have you been to any of the Kentucky meets?
Yeah, the only one that got canceled and rescheduled.
That's right.
Did go.
That's right. That's
Forgot
right.
about that.
So,
That's right. Yeah, I remember that now.
that was all right. I made the best of it.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if you've been to any ones before that, though.
No.
But anyway, okay. Well, either way, the point being, listeners, do as much as you can. Get around as much as you can because it's going to pay dividends if you're really wanting to get into this or... depending on how gung-ho you are, it can also either, I guess, decrease or increase your longevity in it too. But I know that there's been plenty of times here recently where I've just thought to myself, man, I'm doing way too much, and why am I doing this to myself as far as all the driving and stuff? But as much as you get around though, Rich, do you ever find yourself asking yourself that too?
Yes. And not even just for the meets, like my last bird, which... This was her 3rd season. I drove 4,100 miles trapping. So, I caught birds, but wasn't the birds I wanted. So
Yeah.
I released them.
Yeah, and I know anytime you've got like a side venture and stuff too, like I of course have this podcast, and you of course have your little side business and stuff, and that you've been doing for a while also, and it's like. I don't know. I know I'm to the point now where it's like if I sit idle for any length of time, I feel like, completely out of place. Like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, and that's kind of like mine. Was almost out of a necessity. So I have carpal tunnel syndrome and trigger finger. Kind of doing the braiding gear as physical therapy. And if you're just sitting there watching TV, you can just do 2 things at once.
You do the braiding for physical therapy?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So that doing the braiding and all that actually helps those giant hands of yours?
I was hoping we'd talk about the hands.
A little bit, yeah.
Because
a little
it's
bit.
on a podcast. The listeners don't really understand this man's hands.
I haven't had the money yet to invest in the video setup that I want to branch into that, and it's going to be a minute. So people can't fully appreciate.
The first episode, once you do have that, has to be rich so people can see his hands.
There's only 2 people that I know that have hands that large. Yours and my buddy Mark's, who we make fun of all the time for it too. Yeah. And he's he works on like rock crushing equipment and stuff or whatever. His hands are all calloused and large. Like we always talk about like he's German also, so German ancestry. So he's got the stereotypical bratwurst fingers, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But anyway, so,
Richard's hands are the rock crushers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's also in the rock crushing industry.
Yeah, as long as I don't do the braiding for too much, but sometimes it's like 4:00 in the morning.
How long on average does it take you to make a typical set of braided jesses?
Jesses, about an hour and a half, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
For a normal size hawk, falcon, length.
Actually, the micros usually take longer.
Well, I figured they probably would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, hawk set usually takes about an hour and a half to do the.
For both.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on record many times saying there's no way in hell I'd have the patience for that. How long do you feel like it take you how long do you feel like it took you to, and this is something I ask hood makers a lot too, but I like to ask also like other equipment makers, like how long they feel like it took them before they felt like they were making equipment that they felt really comfortable trying to sell or market to other people.
I mean, it's kind of funny because even like in like junior high, I made like the little like friendship bracelets and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
that explains
that's kind
a lot,
of
actually.
I've always had an art background. I have an art degree. So,
of course you did.
Of course, I made friendship
you really
bracelets.
Just tell everybody that
it was a side hustle in junior high. I sold them for $5 a piece so they could give them to their friends.
Nobody that hears this is going to think it was a side hustle,
especially whenever they see you for the first time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, and I'm visualizing like you now sitting in some like 6th grade elementary school like chair, in study hall or something, braiding this crap up. And like,
please put those on your website. Offer the friendship bracelets
I'll have to bring those
on
back.
The website.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Falconry friendship bracelets.
Yes.
I mean, of course, we're Falconers, so we make our own gear. Made a couple sets of leather jesses and was like, yeah, these really don't do it for me. And then seeing all the braided gear and everything like that and watch some YouTube videos and stuff. And I mean, one of the biggest one was Megan. I don't even remember her last name. She has a really good. Yeah.
Yates.
Yeah. Yates, I think.
Yates.
Yeah,
Megan Duffy Yates.
Yeah, she has a really good tutorial on them.
Yeah.
And I mean, doing the actual like length of the jest isn't the hard part. If you do the like Senate knot on the top, I mean, that took me a while to get dialed in and
I bet
be like a uniform size and not be all Yankee and lopsided
I'm like you.
and stuff.
My sponsor was one of those sponsors that was like, okay, you need to go ahead and braid your own leashes, and this is how you make the BC trap and the jesses, and I did all that as an apprentice, and in a jam I could go back to it, but I'm like you, I don't have the patience to sit and do it.
And honestly, like, and I think we're all in agreement that every apprentice needs to at least learn how to make their own basic anklets and like leather jesses and stuff like that.
Agreed.
So that in a pinch or whatever, or if they just want to make their own, I mean, all the power to them. But I'm at a point now where I made my own set of anklets. I actually used your templates, believe it or not, the other day. And even with using your templates, I was sitting there going, I'm just spoiled because like I've gotten to know like all these amazing craftsmen, in the falconry world that, that make these amazing everything from jesses to anklets and everything else. I would just rather support them, and support their business venture and save me a lot of time, effort, and energy.
Yeah.
And, that being said, though, it is important for everybody to learn how to make the basics and stuff, but good Lord. Yeah, I've just have the patience for it anymore.
Right.
I don't know.
I never did.
I just justify it by saying, I'm just helping out other people.
I remember sitting there with my sponsor trying to make the little monofilament nooses on my first BC trap and, screwing it up and having to start over again. And, I knew I was sitting there paying my dues, but deep down, I really just wanted to get on, mikesfalconry.com or someplace. Like, I'm sure I have enough money I could buy a really nice version of this and it'll work great. But I
can say just don't be in a hurry to tie those mono nooses, because you'll spend the whole day going out trying to trap a kestrel and the nooses won't close up on you.
Yeah.
It can be very frustrating.
I use those vinyl coated cable.
I do on my red tail.
Yeah, that's a game.
Yeah.
And actually, in my opinion,
small enough ones for the kestrel, so I was in a hurry. So I just use mono
and I think those are actually easier. The vinyl coated cable nooses are easier to make to me than monofilament slip knots. I think they're easier, don't you? And much more effective. Like when a bird gets on one of those traps with that stuff,
they're not coming.
They're not leaving.
Off. Yeah. The ones, there is a night and day difference in the trap rate that I've seen from the ones that I've other people that have used those and stuff too. But yeah, I throwing my other friend under the bus again real quick. Like, he got to the point where he was, at first it was acceptable for him to ask me, like, can you just, I can't do this. Like, my fingers are just, I can't feel the line. Sure. It's just like, can you tie this or whatever? And that was okay and acceptable for him the first couple of times or whatever that he had me noose up a kestrel BC form, right? Well, then that just wasn't acceptable to him anymore. You had to come up with some other contraption where you didn't have to ask for the help, So he got one of those remote control, like, activated deals or whatever, and made basically a motorized, almost kind of like a bow net. So it's one of those hinge deals where, like, lever, type deals, and got a basic, BC with a mouse in it, right? It's just not noosed.
Right.
And then there's like a net over the top, basically. And then once the kestrel's on the top of the actual BC part or whatever, try to foot at the mouse or whatever, activate it, and then,
did that work?
The net comes down. He strapped a decent amount.
Interesting.
It's not for me. It's not my preference, but I mean,
more power to him.
It's basically an electric bow net.
Yeah.
So a small mini equivalent,
That's cool.
It doesn't work the exact same way, but you get the idea.
Right.
Anyway, to each their own, in other words. But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it's cool talking to other people, getting their opinions on stuff like that, because I know for me, it's to the point now, and this is, like I said, I'm going on almost year 10, and I know deep down I shouldn't have this, like, I don't know, this bias towards, I know I should probably have this inherent like desire to want to do more for myself in those regards. But at the same time, like, there's just so many awesome equipment makers right now, and they can do a better job than me. And I like their stuff better than what I can do, what I can make. So It's like, why not support them?
Absolutely.
And also have me benefit from, you know what I mean? Like, everybody wins.
Yep.
So,
I agree.
For sure.
So don't die or anything, like, anytime soon. I like your braided jesses.
And like you, I don't know about you, but
Try not to.
And don't quit. Don't quit. Don't burn out.
I feel really good about supporting somebody like, Richard or Mountain State is getting going now. And I've been trying to support her a lot, and she's doing a great job. And I feel good about supporting those people who are, trying to create a side hustle. And how cool that, there are people out there, you included, Jonathan, figuring out how to, maybe make a side hustle out of this game that we all really love to play, and maybe eventually be able to put a few bucks in your pocket, doing something we really like to do. So,
yeah. Well, and I know for me, it's more just that never ending journey of finding, like, an additional purpose in life.
Sure.
I mean, even if it's something as weird and as small and as niche as the world of falconry that we're involved in, that, like, 0.0000142% of people are involved in the world.
Right.
Like, it's like, but I matter to them, or whatever. It's like they think what I'm doing is worthwhile, and not that you necessarily need that validation, but you I mean, like everybody I think needs some degree of like feeling of like meaning or purpose in their life, like they're doing something constructive or whatever. And I think oftentimes when you talk to people that don't have that, those are the people that are like truly unhappy, And
Sure.
And I mean, even in this little niche world of ours, I know, even though sometimes I feel like I'm reaching the point of burnout occasionally with doing this stuff, like I still don't know at this point in my life what I would do if I didn't have it in my life, because it's just something that I look forward to doing, and I feel like I'm doing something constructive.
It's long trips and sleepless nights worth it.
Oh my God. Yeah, sleep deprivation as a whole. Yeah, I'm only half joking when I really do think I probably shaved about 20 years off my life sometimes between that and shift work, But I don't know. Not to get off on.
Who wants to live to be 100 anyhow?
Oh, I don't, for sure. No, I definitely don't. But yeah, I mean, not to get off on too much of a weird sentimental like tangent or whatever. But I mean, like I said, everybody. It's nice whenever people are able to find, some degree of worthwhile venture for themselves.
Sure.
Is the whole point, I guess, what I'm trying to make.
I mean, the reason you made this trip is, you and I have talked a lot, and
sure.
The part that I love best about what you do is documenting the old timers in our sport. I mean, there's already several guys that you've interviewed that aren't with us anymore, and now their stories are forever documented in library form for us all to go back and dip our ladle into that knowledge and wealth. And I love that about, talking to us. I feel like there's still a whole lot more in front of me than behind me. So I don't know how much we'll have to talk about, but you're here, because you were talking to somebody who I consider a legend in our sport. And so, yeah, I mean, I love that about what you're doing. So
I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's neat being able to kind of, you never know who you're going to like meet along the way that you can relate to somewhat and a little bit more. And it's been, like I said, it's been nice for me also to be able to, I mean, sure. I don't knock on anybody that wants to do this stuff exclusively remotely or whatever. We all have to do it to some degree. But for me, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it and like get that other extra benefit of really getting to a little bit more, I don't know, in-depth know someone, with that face-to-face kind of encounter, which is why I like sitting in a shady RV, drinking some bourbon and stuff after.
I don't know you guys, but I'm feeling like I made it right now. We finally got
after
there.
Today. I mean, that was pretty awesome. Even though
it was a cool day.
I wish that I had a shady RV, and also, by the way, before we talk about anything else, I do want to mention to everybody, for those of you that have heard about a particular town called Springfield, Ohio recently in the news, whether that's via the presidential debates or otherwise, well, this just happens to be where these dachshund trials are being held this weekend, where we're at in said shady RV. And it's been kind of interesting.
Yeah, we've had to work really hard to make sure our dogs didn't end up on a rotisserie. Goodness gracious. Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, we had this trip planned for months before it. Literally, I realized where the campground was when I left the house on Thursday to come here. And I put the address in, I look at my GPS, I'm like, Springfield. Like, oh, this is a terrible idea. We're taking a bunch of 8-pound dogs to Springfield now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we've been on full alert.
Yeah, I know whenever you called me the other day, it took, you were like, wait for it. I'm like, what the hell is he saying? Wait. And I'm like, and then it hit me and I was like, oh my God, shit. We're going to Springfield. Because all I kept thinking in my head was New Carlisle, right? Because that's the town that's on the AKC, the official town,
right?
That the Beagle Club is in, that the trials are being held and all that. And then you're like, you realize it was like literally 5 nanoseconds from Springfield, you know.
Right. And I just want to get this out there that since we've been here, and it's been a couple days now, I've only seen one actual Haitian person, and she was roasting a pig. Not a goose, not a cat, not a dog. It was a hog roast.
Well,
and it was pretty good.
I mean, and I wanted to make sure that you clarified that too, that the hog roast was actually something that, at least today anyway, this RV park or whatever, this campground was actually cooking said hog.
Yes.
At least we're pretty sure it was a hog because there was
There
was a skinned
hog-looking head. And there was an apple close by. I don't know if you saw the apple.
It was an apple.
Yes.
Too. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to the campground for the free barbecue pork sandwich. It was pretty good.
It was good.
Good.
It was good.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see how many of us continue to feel good the rest of the night after that, but yeah, no, it was good, but yeah, no, it's oh God, yeah, I don't know, it's added an interesting dynamic to the weekend, but
for sure.
But yeah, and congratulations to you both again. You know, like I said,
thanks a lot, man.
For I mean, this is only your second trial.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Rick. And then this is your first, right, Rich? Yeah. And to have dogs that have already placed
8-month-old
puppy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that have already placed, that high, first and all that kind of stuff. And well, in your case, you also won the Open.
Yeah, best Open.
Yeah, Rick,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool experience. And the cool thing for us being falconers, I mean, we're a bunch of part-timers coming to these things and living in a world where these people that we're competing against live for this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so for us to show up to our first and second trial and have our dogs take ribbons home is, I mean, I think that's a pretty cool feat. They probably hope we'd never come back.
Don't show up next time.
There, I mean, depending on where you go, I've noticed that there's some areas that seem, this is just my personal observation. So, I mean, if there's any heat to be had for it, I'll take it, I guess. But like, depending on where you go, it seems like there are people in that world that seem to relish in or enjoy the extra, what they call competition.
Yeah.
Because they feel like it's a better measure for where their dogs are at also, that even if they don't hunt with them.
Sure.
And others, well, not so much.
Yeah. If you think about it, it's not a lot different than our falconry community. There's half of us, are really interested in growing the sport and welcoming people from the outside to see it and try to be good stewards of the sport. And then there is a percentage of the guys out there flying birds that don't want to run into anybody else, when they're out and about. And it, just it's society in general. It takes all of us. But I mean, everybody that I've dealt with this weekend's been pretty kind and
sure.
And you may as well pat yourself on the back. You've had weekends like this too. You've had success with your dogs, and I mean, and maybe still will this weekend.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it is
tomorrow.
It really is so.
You only have a chance because River's not.
Well, yeah, you guys aren't gonna be here tomorrow, so yeah, I might actually have a chance now, and well, you don't matter because you've got a bitch, and
that's true.
I've got dogs, so.
And by the way, isn't that fun to say?
Yeah, yeah.
And who doesn't love to hear Teddy Moritz, say that word repeatedly?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing better.
In a very matter-of-fact manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so yeah, you don't really mean anything to me this weekend. You're not a threat nor a help to me.
That's fair.
Because you and your bitch are not in the same category as me. So, but Rich here, on the other hand, he
got him out of the way.
Yeah, he's got his jollies in for the weekend. He can go away.
One and done.
I heard that about you, actually.
So selfish, God. But yeah, no, I mean it's cool, and we it is and ultimately for us, sure. I mean, we have different motivations in doing this stuff than some of these other folks, and it is what it is. I mean, for us, the real end game is actually being able to have good hunting dogs and have our dogs produce for us in that manner. And
I think it's a great way to get the dog in some sort of hunting shape after being a couch potato all summer, right before we're getting ready to get into some really good rabbit hunting. And me too. I mean, what was our last check? 16 or 17,000 steps beating brush today.
Yeah, it was a little like just right at or just under.
That's probably more steps than I've had a day all summer.
Yeah.
So yeah, me and the dog
like
have
2
been
weeks
couch
for me.
potatoes. Well, I mean, your physical therapy's in your hands.
Yeah, of course.
Those rock crushers.
Yeah, that could be construed in a lot of different ways, I guess. But
I'm
yeah,
leaving that alone.
Yeah, you probably should. You behave over there. But yeah, no, it's like I said, it's, to me, like a lot of this other stuff is just a way to keep, like you said, you summarized it well, to keep the dogs engaged, keep them worked, and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, as we've talked about now, I mean, you guys are two other guys that I'm sure I could probably add you to the list. You've already kind of mentioned it a little bit, that without the dogs, there's not going to be near as much falconry enjoyment in general anymore. Like, the other guys in my group, as I've said many times before, they don't hunt with dogs. They don't like hunting with dogs. I only have one other buddy that is hardcore about hunting with dogs, as some of us are.
Right.
And, it's just like, I joke with with a couple of them in particular, and I'm just like, what are you going to do whenever you are retired or you want to start hunting like almost every day and stuff, and you don't have all of these people to beat for you constantly?
Yeah.
And they always give some convoluted answer to that or whatever. I don't care, I'll go out and I'll just whatever. I'm just like, good Lord, I can't imagine not having the help.
No, I mean, and Rich and I have had conversations where, maybe this isn't the case for everybody, but the places that I can hunt rabbits, and I fly Harris hawks, so I want to hunt rabbits. I've tried the squirrel thing. We did really well at it. I had some heartaches as a result of focusing on squirrels with Harris's. So I've got rabbits, but they're tough, and I was the dog before, and literally, I mean, I got gym shorts on. Here's my thought.
Please keep your clothes on over there.
No, but seriously. So before having a dog, it was me swimming in brambles and multiflora rows over my head, trying to find the few rabbits that are on the places that I can hunt for my birds to catch. And we did it. We did it. When I became privy to this dachshund world, I thought, I like the idea of not squeezing thorns out of my thighs, despite wearing the best Dan's gear that I can find. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what made sense to me.
Like you said, John, just if you have other people out in the field with you, I mean, you don't really need a dog, but
you can't always rely on that.
But
right.
You have a good dog, and I mean, my Decker, he runs 3 times the amount of time space that I walk. So, that's like having 3 other people in the field with you.
Sure.
Right.
Just more opportunity for game to move. And
one of the things Mick's talked about forever, because he's flown Harris's and ran Dachshunds for a long time, and he always used to say that he was only transportation. He would take the birds and the dog to the hunting spot and let them out, and they'd do their thing, and he'd haul them back home. And I used to think it was a joke, but now I'm starting to see there's a little bit of truth to that. Like, they don't really need me. The birds, when we go out, the birds don't really watch me anymore. They're watching that little red dog and listening for the bell that I've got on her collar to see where she is, because they know where the slip's going to come from. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit ago. It's been a little bit frustrating for me because I feel like every time I'm kind of on the cusp of having like my team for the foreseeable future, something else comes up, some logistical BS comes up, something happens or whatever. I've only had like a tease of a good team, and I'm at a point now where, like you guys, if a bird's not going to work very well with the dogs, then I'm not going to waste any more time trying to make it work. I'll just move on.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
It's like I'm way more committed to the longevity of the dogs as a team than any bird.
Sure.
But
it's a moving target, really.
Yeah.
And I've experienced so much heartache since I've been involved in this game, losing birds and having tragedies happen. Just when you think you've got it figured out and you've got that team dialed in, and somebody shoots your male Harris hawk because it snuck on the neighbor's property and killed a chicken, I mean, honestly, and when you're dealing with stuff like that, just when you think you've got it dialed in, then you're introducing a new bird and you're making adjustments, and that's where the constant challenge comes from for me, and keeps it interesting for a dude that has undiagnosed adult ADHD, and my interests are constantly changing, and that's the cool thing about this game, is it changes enough. There's enough variables that you keep trying to get yourself to that next echelon, and
well, I guess that brings us to the next kind of sort of line of thought here. Is we were making bets on how long it was going to be before Rich invests in Harris's.
Yeah.
And
my guess is it probably is going to be before the end of this season, right here.
This season?
This season. I don't know what you're waiting for, honestly.
Find me something better than a red tail for squirrels.
I've been trying to show you. Well, I mean, we could talk about.
I mean, I got the dachshund because I want to add rabbits into the mix.
I mean, I could give you about 20 minutes
squirrels.
on Harris hawks and squirrels. If you guys want to talk about Harris hawks and squirrels, I got all kind of information we could talk about.
Well,
they can do the job
very well, so well. Can we talk about?
I hear of more horror stories of having injuries and losing toes with Harris hawks than with red tails.
All right, story time, if it's okay.
Story time.
All right, so I'm a first year apprentice, okay, and I had my first red tail was a hawk I called Ariel, and man, she was such a good bird, and we didn't really go into. You didn't ask us yet. Oh, how did you get into falconry? But the long story shortened is that my best friend in the world, Joe Kirk, was a falconer before me. We've been friends long before he became a falconer. And when he discovered falconry, I knew I wanted to do it too. And I called myself the apprentice to the apprentice for 2 years. So I followed him through his entire 2-year apprenticeship, went to all the club meets, hunted with him every chance I had this huge leg up. So when it was time, when he became a general and I was his first, I had all this knowledge and information. So I came out of the gate, and I was fortunate enough my first bird was a rock star. I mean, we were catching so many squirrels. So anyway, let me get to the point. We're getting close to Thanksgiving. So we're a couple months into the season. My bird's banging. I mean, we've got so many squirrels in the freezer already this first season for me. And my wife says, hey, we're going to go down to the Outer Banks and visit our family for Thanksgiving. And of course, the first thing I think of is, oh my God, it's a week I'm going to miss hunting with my bird who's killing. What am I going to do? So it got the gears turning, and I actually hopped on Facebook, and I'm trying to find a falconer near the Outer Banks. And lo and behold, there was one. I reached out to the North Carolina Falconers Guild or their club, and everybody says, oh yeah, get a hold of Doug Potter. I'm like, all right. So I get in touch with this guy, Doug Potter, who's the only falconer at the Outer Banks, and he graciously invites me to go hunting with him. So Ariel, the red tail, goes on vacation with us, and we make plans to meet up on Black Friday, day after Thanksgiving. All the girls are going shopping. Me and my Uncle Keith and Doug Potter are going hawking. So we meet at McDonald's. Doug takes us to this great spot he's got, which apparently is the only spot at the Outer Banks that holds squirrels. God bless him. We go there, and this was the first chance I ever had to see Harris hawks fly in a cast. So me hanging around the Ohio guys that flew Harrises, none of the Ohio guys that had Harrises at the time flew their birds in a cast. Mike Kroc, he's got a great bird, flies on his own. Mick had a couple great birds that they don't. I got to see a cast work for the first time ever and was blown away. I had this incredible trip with this guy who was gracious enough to take me out there. My red tail caught a North Carolina squirrel, and his Harrises didn't catch that day, but I got to see that teamwork, and it was a male female cast, and I got to see the different flight styles, and I was hooked. I mean, I knew I was a couple months into my first season with a red, and I knew exactly what I was going to do when I became a general. I mean, there was no question in my mind where I was going. And the interesting thing about it, so in Ohio, there's this taboo. I mean, all the guys in Ohio, you don't dare fly Harrises on squirrels. They're not built for that. Look at their feet. Their feet aren't built for battling squirrels, right? But everybody in the South that doesn't have a good rabbit population, they're all down there flying squirrels with Harrises. I mean, it for some reason in our area, it's a big no. But I knew that people did it, and so I decided I was going to do it. And we did it. So I became a general, got my first sister pair of, my first cast was two sisters out of the same clutch. And, man, they were so good at it once they got it. I mean, it was just incredible to me how quickly, better than the Rockstar red tail that I had before. And then, so we're piling squirrels up left and right and getting really good at it. And we're catching the occasional rabbit here and there. And then all of a sudden I get this terrible injury with my prized Harris, my female, Miami. And thank God, she catches this squirrel. It severs a tendon. She can't, everybody that's been there knows the deal. She can't straighten out her long toe. So I find a great surgeon, Dr. Oglesby. I love that woman. If you ever need a tendon repair and you can get into Dr. Oglesby at MedVet Hilliard, look her up. She's incredible. Got Miami in there. She fixed her. But the surgery was not that big of a deal, and the expense was no big deal. I would have paid that expense 5 times over to make my prized bird better. But watching my bird go through that recovery, wearing a ball cast for weeks and weeks and weeks and taking medicine. And I mean, it was a terrible thing. And there are people in our sport that use their birds as tools or treat them as tools. I love my birds. I mean, I love these birds. I have a relationship with these birds. And I had this terrible guilt that I carried around because of what I put her through out of my, all these guys in Ohio are like, hey, what are you doing, man? We told you don't fly Harrises on squirrels. And sure enough, finally, it happened. And so I'm like, okay, I got some rabbits, but they're really tough to hunt in central Ohio, and that's kind of what took us to the dachshund thing. And it's changed, we're catching as many rabbits as we did squirrels. The rabbits don't fight back the way the squirrels do. And I feel a lot better about it. Don't get me wrong. I miss squirrel hawking. I mean, in a perfect world, someday, if I got the facilities to do it, I want to cast a Harris's and a red tail so I can go out every other day and kill squirrels one day and rabbits the next. But
no, just give me your squirrel spots.
Dude, you can come hunt squirrels with me. I need to live vicariously through you.
We'll do that.
So that was my dachshund journey. That's how I ended up now that I've got a dog in the field with me, the rabbits that are out there, if we miss that first chance at a bunny, when it was just me and I was the dog, you miss that first chance, might not see that bunny again unless you're fortunate enough to be hunting in the snow. Now we miss one, dog knows where it was. We get another chance until it goes in the best,
So not to necessarily take...
That was a lot of talking. I'm sorry.
Long. So not to necessarily take Rich's side here, and not to necessarily call out your adult undiagnosed ADHD, but the topic that made you take that line of thought, of course, was trying to convince him that he needs Harris's for squirrel hawking.
That too. I was like, it didn't convince me at all.
What I'm saying is this. What I'm saying there are people all over the place hunting squirrels with Harris's, and they have no shame about it. And they are calculated risk. So good at it. I'm telling you right now, there's nothing like hunting with a cast of Harris's that get good on squirrels. I mean, the cooperation between those birds and seeing a squirrel spiral up and down a big tree. I've seen it happen a lot of times, and it's very exciting. And there's some videos out of me. They're just like going crazy when it happens. Yeah, it's a calculated risk.
I don't want to have the consequences to deal with.
Understood.
If something goes wrong,
And here's the other thing that you're getting ready to find out with your young dachshund. I know you think there's not a whole lot of rabbits where you hunt. Now that you've got a dachshund, I mean, maybe you're already finding out there's rabbits there. I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the Decker, he'll follow a track. It's mostly, a hot track, but he'll follow it. Although he's kind of proved me wrong going out and following the 6-hour-old rabbit trail that I drug from my dachshund and being like, why aren't you doing this in the field? But I mean, yeah. So he doesn't want to get in the brush. I'll be like, put him in the brush, and of course he doesn't have very thick coat, so
I've seen
he gets out as fast as he wants to.
Yeah, there's plenty of Deckers that are great on rabbits, but like you said, but the problem is whenever you get into the thick cover, and they don't want to. Yeah,
they're not built for it.
And I mean, the first year I ran a briar vest on him, but he just kept getting hung up. He would go in, but it would hang up on the buckles and stuff, and stop running that on him, and then he doesn't want to go into it. So
it's about the best tool for the job,
exactly.
Which is, I think, what your original point was, in that you still have yet to see a species of hawk that's better for squirrels than red tails.
There isn't one. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, and like I said, you can debate all this stuff ad nauseum, you know, for sure. And but I think for the most part, as far as the tank builds that red tails have,
I mean, you can't go wrong with like a 1,500 gram red tail.
No.
And look, here's the thing: even that bird that I talked about earlier, who was such a rock star, Ariel, she had a tendon severed by a gray squirrel. And actually at that time, the vet that I ended up taking her to, and I didn't have the contacts that I do now. And, I took her to like our family vet who saw our dogs at the time. That veterinarian was like, oh, it's a pinky toe. Let's just take it off. And it worked out fine. I think knowing what I know now, if that were to happen again, I would have worked harder to try to get it repaired. But she ended up having her pinky toe amputated, and 2 weeks to the day after she had her pinky toe amputated, she killed a squirrel. Mm-hmm. A day that I was just taking her out to try to get her some exercise. She'd been cooped up dealing with her recovery, and I went on to hunt her for almost one more season with 7 toes, and she killed many, many squirrels without that pinky toe.
They don't need it.
They don't.
As long as they've got the power one and the Alex, they're good.
It's a little balance. That's about it, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's something like it's a topic of that a lot of people love to debate in that particular community. But as much as people want to debate, overall, there's still really not much of a debate. Like it's overall, it's really hard to argue against a nice meaty red tail for squirrels.
No, but it's all personal preference. It's what you want to fly. So
that's right.
I mean,
and there are other species.
People love flying their Goshawks on whatever, or their Harris's on whatever, or great horned owl on whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so if you want to fly it, you can fly it. If it works out, it works out. If not, then try something else.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's inherent risk no matter what you do. And I mean, some of these, especially some of these Eurasian or European or whatever, however you want to, term, like some of these bigger goshawks and stuff too, some of them have nice big meaty feet that are very comparable, and
For sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, there's other species that do, and I mean, yeah, but like you said, I mean, it's just a matter of what you like flying and everything else. But yeah, no, I don't know. Like I said, well, real quick before we go any further, I mean, yeah, Rick just kind of touched on, initially what got him into falconry and stuff, but like, what was your initial 4 years ago, and what kind of made you want to put yourself out so much to get into it?
It was just one of those things, like almost like an epiphany kind of thing. Just having an animal background, always having birds and stuff, and parrots and
Just
canaries.
asking.
And
Did you ever read My Side of the
I
Mountain?
have not read My
What?
Side of the
A
Mountain.
falconer that's never
No.
read My Side of the
I
Mountain.
didn't read My Side of the Mountain until about 2 years ago.
Is that right?
No. And
It is a
actually,
great
like
book.
Maybe even a year ago. I can't remember.
when I was 13, my uncle was stationed in Alaska, and his wife at the time was a vet, and had access to bald eagles that were getting rehabbed and everything, and got to hold one. So that was like really cool. And seeing guys at Sportsman's Expo when I was younger with the same kind of thing, doing the educational programs, and it was just always like a thing in the back of my mind. And then, of course, the Lauren McGow 60-minute, thing came out, back, I think it was 18 or 19. And I was like, that's really cool. So I started researching
Was
it.
it
and
that long ago that was?
It's been
It
a
was,
while.
It has
before,
been a minute, hasn't
before I started getting into it. So yeah.
Huh.
And that's like what triggered the actual effort to see about it and get into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then
Go from there.
what was the main motivation then? I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit already, but what was the moment where you're like, I definitely want to start making equipment? I mean, what
Making the equipment, I mean, it was just
sort of commercially?
Commercially?
I should specify.
well, I was making a bunch of it and giving it to all my friends, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is really good." And then
It was cheaper back then.
yeah. So it was just like one of those things, I'm donating stuff to the raffles and the picnics and stuff like that. And then I think the first customer that contacted me was from over in the UK somewhere. And I had to make like 17 sets and send them over to him for his menagerie of birds, and just kind of went from there. And then started doing some 3D printing stuff, like hood protectors and anklet templates, like you said you use, and
Yep.
Stuff,
Those
so-
are handy, and it was funny too because that your Kestrel anklet template that you have through Heather, that's available through Heather's website. It's funny because I've been sold on that whole grommetless, very thin, basically that same exact pattern for years. That's what I've pretty much used exclusively on Kestrels. And I've thought for years, even when I saw your templates, like normally through your website, I was just like, I really, really would like a Kestrel anklet template, just like I have and stuff. It'd be really, really nice if someone made one of those. And then this
you
whole
can
ask and
thank
you shall
Heather
receive.
because that was her style that she wanted for her stuff. Mine's a little that I make's a little bit different, but
Well, and lo and behold, as I started to kind of get to know her a little bit, and then of course I have one of those fancy schmancy new bow perches that cures
Me too.
Very
cures
cool. Yeah.
cures cancer and ED and all kinds of other ailments and stuff for falconers.
It's pretty sweet.
It's
I got one too.
But anyway, as I was perusing her website, and when I was looking at that, lo and behold, I see this Kestrel anklet template, courtesy of Midnight Falconry pop up and stuff. I was like, that's sandbagging SOB.
Yeah.
Where has this been for the last 2 or 3 years? Because that's the thing. The hardest thing, at least I don't know what you guys think, but for me, I can make those anklets just as a guesstimate, right? Or I kept an older anklet as kind of like my template, right? But I can never seem to punch the holes
to line up whenever you fold them together.
exactly like I want them to be each
Yeah.
time, especially where in accordance to where I cut the little notch,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and it would piss me off every time because
Not centered.
I can't even count how many I've made that I've had to tossed because I was just like, God, I'm an idiot. Like, I'm not cutting these. So anyway,
I've always kept a template, but it was like cardboard, like maybe like the inside of a 12-pack of soda or beer or something.
Yeah, and that probably would have been the smarter thing to do.
But I also purchased.
Well, I mean, mine have evolved. They went from
this
just
template.
basically an advanced form of the cardboard where you just have to trace them or whatever, and now I put a lip on them. So if you have like a hammer, you just tap it and it actually like impresses the.
Nice.
Yeah,
I haven't used it yet, but I do own one.
I've started to not even use a scalpel anymore. I just cut the leather with scissors.
That's what I used to.
And I'm just like, this is why haven't I done this for a while too? And anyway, but like I said, just wanting to, no, it's all good. Yeah, I always like hearing people's motivations straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. On those things, and everybody's got like different motivations.
It pays for me to go to all these meets and everything. Like the PA and that's Ohio and New Jersey and NAFA and everything like that. So it's a nice little helper for that.
Well, and as we were talking about at dinner, that's really if you're able to accomplish that in this niche world, to where it pays for those things. I mean, that's really about as much as you can really hope for. I mean, like, you can hope for more, but I mean, if you're doing something right, if you're to that stage with it, for sure. But I know we were talking about, like, you were fiddling on your phone earlier, and you had a list of topics and things that you wanted to discuss. I mean, we delayed. I was starting to become extremely famished, and my blood sugar was dropping extraordinarily fast because you were piddling on your phone, making notes earlier before we went to dinner, and we were delayed another 30 or 45 minutes getting there to eat because you had this list of topics.
Well, I mean, admittedly, we've covered several of them already. I wanted to be prepared if you asked. I'm not a great storyteller, and my memory's junk, which is also
as we found out already. Yeah.
Wow. You can't be. My glass is empty, and I'd prefer you not talk to me like that if I can't take a drink. I just want to make sure I was prepared with some answers if you asked me something, that I couldn't rattle off the top of my handicapped brain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I forgot that you're a victim in all this. Sorry for forgetting that.
You're forgiven. I am a protected class, though. So.
Well, so I guess if nothing else, we were talking about some funny stories and instances and stuff, like kind of when we were at dinner, and before we kind of start to wind things down. And this just, like I said, for those of you listening, I'm sure you figured out by now that there really technically wasn't like a set criteria or a point to this conversation. It was one of those deals where I have both these guys here at the same time. I figured this is the second night. We've been out in the heat all day.
Delirious.
And we're a little delirious. We've just gotten our bellies full. We've had a few drinks. And rather than do two separate individual episodes with these guys, I felt like I could accomplish the gist of what I usually accomplish by having them both on at the same time and having a little different vibe to this conversation and stuff, which I think we've accomplished adequately. But before we, like I said, start to wind down, we do need to get a couple of stories in, I think, and what you guys have experienced, and still want to get some pieces of advice from both of you as well, and we can I don't know, do whatever the rest of the evening here. So,
you got a funny story that comes to mind?
Doesn't even have to be funny. I mean, it could just be a memorable, you know how it goes. Memorable story. One of your more impactful memories.
I got a funny one. I'll go first. I can tell you about the night that Garrett Dittmer, who's anybody that knows me knows he's kind of become my right hand man in falconry. He actually caused me to go to prison one night during a falconry meet. So a few years back, I don't remember what year it was, that the NAFA meet was in Oklahoma. And most people don't have good things to say about that meet. The game was tough. Garrett and I actually had a really good week out there because it was pretty much like hunting here. I mean, if you were willing to put the work in and we drove a lot and asked around a lot to try to find game, and we found a couple of spots that we were able to depend on, and every time we went there we were able to kill cottontails. But one of the things that we were doing one night to try to figure out where some game was is we went on a night drive, and we had some old timers tell us that if you go out at night with a spotlight, you can find jackrabbits. And we thought that there was jackrabbits in that area. It turned out we never did see a jackrabbit on this trip, but so he and I are out in the middle of the night driving around in a pretty remote part of Oklahoma, and I actually fell in love with it out there. The roads that we are allowed to travel 55 on in Ohio, the speed limit's 70 out there, and if you're not going 70 on those 2-lane roads, they fly by you. But the cool thing about Oklahoma is they just wave at you when they go by. They don't give you the finger like they do in Ohio. So we're out basically just looking for jackrabbits in the middle, trying to find some fields where we could hunt jacks on, because that was really our goal. We've killed lots of cottontails in Ohio. Let's try to find something we don't usually get to hunt. So we're traveling. All the roads out there are kind of in grids. Everything runs north and south, east and west for the most part. And we're following on the maps, and we're on all these back gravel country roads, and we're going down this gravel road, and we come to a spot where there's like this open steel gate, and it really just kind of looks like a gravel lane going back to a farm or something like that. And I'm driving, and I ask Garrett, I'm like, "Are you sure this is a road? It doesn't feel like the type of place that we're supposed to be driving." He's like, "No, I swear, right here, I'm looking at it. It's like County Road 37 or whatever it is." And I'm like, "All right, well, I mean, let's keep driving then." And I could see that the main road is on up beyond this, so we keep on driving, and we're still kind of just looking for game, figuring out the lay of the land, telling jokes, laughing, whatever. Well, as we're driving, it's starting to get really light, and we're seeing that there's like some sort of parking lot or maybe a business coming up, and that was the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. And this road literally went through the prison and kind of separated like the two buildings, and we're in the parking lot of the penitentiary, and there's like inmates looking through the windows, checking us out through the windows, like they're not far from us. And I'm telling Garrett, I'm like, "Dude, I don't think we're supposed to be here." And before long, some people with lights on top of their cars showed up and told us we indeed were not supposed to be there. I mean, long story short, this guy comes up to the car, and he's not happy about us being there. And I explained why we were in town, what we were doing. We're just following a map. And as it turned out, Jim Bob, that called off work that day, is the guy that usually shuts the blue gate back there on rural Route 37 that closes it off to the prison. But yeah, we had some splaining to do on that one. We still revisit that one once in a while when we're a few beers in, and like, yeah, caused me to go to prison.
Yeah.
It was really concerning at the time. It may sound funny now, but me driving, and yeah, it didn't feel like it was going to turn out well, but they did end up turning us loose once we explained. They took down our license plate number, and yeah, it was a weird deal.
Coming after you.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a fun time.
Have you thought of one of your more memorable hunting experiences?
I mean, I'm still pretty new to it, so I don't have like a whole lot of like crazy or funny stories. But,
I feel like that too. I'd like to think that most of my stories
the
are
only
in front
like
of me.
cool one was probably my second season.
God, I was hoping you would tell this one.
Ricky was with me, Garrett was with me, and it was at the Ohio end of the year meet, and I had a bird that didn't like to be around a bunch of people. We went to a landowner that's always inviting to the Falconers, and it was him and I think
it was a pretty good sized group.
It was a couple of his kids was with us, and
yep.
I had my bird out and got everything ready, and we're all walking up through the field, and there was this giant pile of branches and stuff in the field, and before I could even get up there, to get in place, his son jumps on it, and the rabbit shoots out, and I had my bird on the fist, and she takes off, chases it down through the field and into like a little creek area, and had all kinds of brambles and stuff in it, and could not get her to come back down and follow us and stuff like that. So everybody kind of walks around the creek, and there's a pond to our left, and everybody surrounds it. And Garrett, of course, sees a rabbit sitting in a bush, and so I end up trying to get my bird down there and everything. And before the bird comes down, everybody's surrounding the rabbit, and you have the pond behind it, and apparently the rabbit decided to go swimming that day, and nobody there realized that rabbits swim. So it just swam right across the pond, and my bird luckily saw it swimming and moved down, and she was in a tree above us, and I'm running down through, and actually I had like briars ripping my face open and everything, and get down there, and the landowner was like in front of me, and the rabbit comes right up between us, and she hammers it and, gets to it, and it's like right in front of the landowner, and he's like going crazy. He's like, it's the wet one, it's the wet one. So that's like the most awesome thing, that the landowner got such a kick out of it. So
I was one of the brush beaters, and we knew where the rabbit had holed up, or it was in this thicket. And so we all made this line thinking that we would kind of coerce it the direction we wanted it to go towards the bird, never thinking in a million years that a rabbit would actually go into a pond. And there's a video out there that exists of this rabbit swimming across the top of this. I'd never seen that. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, and
seen it a couple times.
Yeah, that was the first for me.
Yeah,
but
sure.
That was amazing. I mean, it was awesome that she caught the rabbit in front of all those people, but
was it great?
Like right in front of the landowner, he just got the biggest kick out of it. Was like the greatest thing.
Yeah. Nice.
I had one of those last season where I was hunting rabbits on a landowner's property who had never gotten to see, and he got to see a nice, lawn slip where the rabbit ran across his nicely mowed lawn, and bird scooped it up right in front of him, and he was hooked. Now every time I go to that guy's place, he's out there with me with a stick and stuff, so that's always good when the landowner gets in on the action. Sure.
Yeah, man, it's any even if it's just one person at a time, anybody that we can get to, on our side and seeing the beauty of it all,
For sure.
But well, cool. Yeah, I mean, we can go ahead and get the last piece of advice or sentiments that you guys have, and then unless there's anything else that you guys want to talk about or cover while we're here.
Yeah, I mean, I can
close to calling this good,
Bring your list out.
Yeah,
more stuff on there.
I mean, admittedly, I've in the few years that I've been around, I've had a lot of heartache with falconry, and as you guys that do this and go hard the way that I try to do, and I'm talking when you're out there 5 or 6 days a week, bad things can happen, and I've dealt with a lot. I actually ultimately lost that first red tail that I was flying. We were hunting squirrels, and she got impaled by some thorns on a honey locust tree. And that particular day, it happened. I knew it happened. I watched it happen. Called her down, checked her over really good. Couldn't find any signs of injury, no blood. She killed a rabbit 20 minutes later. But a week later, that bird died. And knowing what I know now, there were some signs during that week that she was telling me that she was sick and didn't feel well, but being a first-year apprentice, I was actually second year at that point, I didn't pick up on those signs, and I lost a good bird that maybe could have been fixed if I'd have took that bird to the vet. So, look for those signs when something like that happens. That's a big thing. When go with your gut, when your bird is acting moody or giving you some personality that you're not used to seeing, there's something not right. It's just not a mood when it comes to those birds. And to do over again, I would have gotten that bird seen. And honest to God, I'd probably still be flying her today if I wouldn't have lost her. But and I've had a couple of birds. I've lost a couple of Harrises to electrocution, and I mean, I'm at the point now. I drive by permissions that I have that are great spots. I mean, really good hunting spots, because there's overhead power, there's transformers there, and I just won't fly my bird anymore near overhead power. And after I lost the first one, I kind of tried to convince myself that it was just that spot that was dangerous, so I'll just stay away from that spot. When you lose another one, it's like, man, it's heartbreaking. So don't fly near overhead electricity. There's people out there that do it, but it literally is Russian roulette. It's just a matter of time before, when your bird's got bells around their legs and antennas hanging off of them and stuff like that, you're asking for it. So those are the two biggest heartaches I've had. I had a male Harris get shot by a chicken farmer last season, which was heartbreaking. Not a whole lot you can do about, idiots with shotguns. When I would have paid him enough to replace all of his chickens that he had in the field that day, as opposed to losing my male Harris. But that's I know that's a lot of things at once, but and I, kind of where I'm at now is, when I started out in this, I focused a lot on head numbers, like I felt like I had something to prove when I was new. And so I would hunt every day that I could go out, and I didn't think a lot about the risks that I put my birds in, the risks I put myself in, and now that I've been at it a while, I finally got to a point where I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anybody anymore, and it's more important to me now, to take my birds home every day. I do not care how many head of game I kill. We still have great seasons. But you hear all the old timers, I listen to all your podcasts, all the old timers, they get to a point where they talk about the quality of the flight. And I could see that. I've been doing this long. I can see where you get to the point where it doesn't matter about the kill anymore. Sometimes, even in like outside of my falconry realm, I trapped a groundhog at my house a few weeks ago, and I was getting ready to deal with it the way you usually deal with a situation like that and unalive it. And I ended up taking it for a ride and turning it loose at a cemetery. And it felt so good to watch that little fat ass run off out of that live trap. And I went home and I told my wife, I was like, I finally killed enough shit in my life where it's actually more rewarding to see something live that I could have killed than to kill stuff now. And
I think what a lot of people eventually realize is both ends of the spectrum, not to cut you off, but I wanted to interject this line of thought before I forgot myself here. Both ends of the spectrum are easy to make fun of after a certain amount of time, because like you said, when every falconer goes through these stages, and it's like you can time it like clockwork, right? The first and second year, going into even the first couple of years of a general, because everybody knows that nobody knows more than a brand new general, falconer, right?
Sure.
And so on and so forth, and all this kind of stuff. But people make light of the fact when people say, well, I don't care about kill counts, and we've all joked about this to some degree or another. Well, yeah, kill counts obviously kind of hold some inherent value, because that means you're excuse me, it still holds some inherent value, because it means you're flying your bird like you should be, right?
Sure. Oh yeah.
But at the same time, as time progresses, we like to poke fun at the people, like you said, that feel like they've got something to prove, and feel like that if they don't limit out every single day, then
I was that guy. I mean,
then they're.
I remember
days.
I remember days that I would go home. and we didn't get any, and I would be pissed. Like, I would be at home and dealing with my wife, my daughter, my daughter's doing in a bad mood because we didn't put anything in the bag that day.
Yeah,
Like,
you let it ruin your
sucks.
day, and you're judge. And I've actually made that comment before. Like, I know I've had to work a lot over the years too, personally, in not letting my own whatever weird sense of self-worth during the falconry season be dictated by whether or not I brought home something in the game bag or not.
Yeah.
And I have had to work to not let that dictate how the rest of my day was going to go or whatever.
Yep.
So, point being, both ends of the spectrum equally bad.
Right. Sure. I can see that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you're shaking your head, Rich, so I'm seeing that you're kind of agreeing.
Yeah, because, I mean, you just run into it with everybody,
Yeah.
Everyone wants to go out. Some people just want to go out and kill everything, and then people,
Well,
don't put in the work and, just want to carry a bird around. So
yeah.
you just got to make moderation like everything else.
Well, and oftentimes what you see, too, is unfortunately the people that want to kill everything sometimes will want to pursue that at the cost of other people having time out in the field sometimes,
For sure.
too.
Yeah.
During meets
Yeah,
and
I've
things
seen
like
that.
that.
Yeah, I've heard stories of that.
Yeah. So, it all goes back to, once again, both ends of the spectrum. You have to care somewhat about taking quarry because that's the whole point.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, how many head of game do you actually really need to
Right.
take to really consider yourself successful?
Yeah.
And that's always an ongoing debate too, but
Sure.
But anyway, well, how about you, Rich? I mean, what do you think?
Sentiment that I have?
Yeah, or a piece of advice or whatever. I mean, could be related to whatever, really. I mean, when it comes to, in your case, I mean, you've got the equipment making aspect of things that you can draw from on that too, or whatever. But
I mean, as far as with getting into Falconer and everything, is just patience. You always see posts on Facebook, oh, hey, I'm looking for a sponsor.
who can sponsor me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said in the beginning, it took me 2 years of going to multiple states, for picnics and field meets and going out with people and talking to people before, met somebody. And
But you eventually earned it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
felt qualified, I guess, to do what they do themselves and love. So
Sure.
bring me in, and had fun doing it since then. So hopefully when I'm able to take on, since our state's a little bit different, you have to actually be a general for 2 years before you can take on an apprentice.
It's the same in
West
Indiana
Virginia.
too. Yeah.
So when I have the capability of doing that, then
That's a whole other can of worms of a discussion right there too.
Yeah, for sure.
Apprentices?
Well, and who
Or
should
laws.
who should take them on, and how long you really be at it before you really should take them on, and so on and so forth. That's it's a whole other bag of
Definitely.
worms.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys.
I mean, I
wanna-
definitely don't feel qualified to take on an apprentice.
I still don't
So, I mean,
personally.
and like
You know?
I said, I go to all these different meets to go out with different people. And I mean, there's been times going out and not even fly my bird, the whole weekend or whatever that I'm there, and just going out and having a good time with people in the field and see what they do or don't do, or
I think
enjoy the time with them and the camaraderie. And
Well, and that's a good point, because
Stuff.
I know for me it's inherently stressful a lot of times, because as I've talked about before also, I'm not just, well, and in your case too, to some degree also, you've experienced it where you're not just there for falconry, flying your bird, whatever, that aspect of falconry. You're also there for, your side hustle and stuff.
Sure,
and so on and so forth. So any extra little thing that you're there for a meet for, it brings a little extra added bit of for me anyway, a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety.
Oh,
am
definitely.
I fitting everything in that I need to get in?
yeah,
And so for me, I tend to have more, as silly as it sounds, I tend to have more fun at meets if I'm not flying a bird, it's oftentimes, but that's just me.
yeah. And with my schedule with work and stuff like that, I'm always a late flyer. So I get home at like 3:30, throw the bird in the car and get into the woods, fly for an hour and make it home. So when I go out to the meets, I'm like always letting, other people fly before mine because she's used to flying late.
Sure.
And sometimes it comes with not being able to fly, or even if I wanted to, just run out of time because, we're still in the field and I'm not going to rush somebody else to do, their bird wrong. So mine can fly another day or,
Sure.
like Jersey, I'll usually stay, an extra day and go out with my buddy there, Tyler, and, get a rabbit or a squirrel or whatever. So.
Yeah. Well, and the later you fly also, that means the more time that you have to think of all the extra excuses you can make as to why your bird, isn't performing like it should and stuff too.
Of course.
My
bird's not at weight.
Yeah,
She's definitely not. She's not going to be at weight till 3 o'clock.
Yeah, she doesn't like to fly around people.
Definitely. Yeah, she doesn't.
Well, to revisit the whole sponsor apprentice laws in Ohio, you can sponsor somebody as soon as you become a general. And I was sort of chomping at the bit to sponsor somebody. I'll tell you my one attempt at this. And in our club, there's a lot of pressure put on generals to sponsor somebody because there's people showing up all the time. They want to be falconers, and our club promotes that. And so after I became general, the first apprentice seminar I went to, this gal, they asked the question, hey, who's here actively looking for a sponsor? And this gal raises her hand and introduces herself, and she says, hey, I'm already a hunter. I have lots of good permissions. I live in Johnstown, which is like 30 minutes from me. I'm a veterinarian. And I'm like, all these bells are going off. Like, oh my God, like who doesn't want a veterinarian in their back
I found
pocket?
a unicorn,
right? And I hate it. It sounds really bad when it sounds bad when I say it out loud, but like, I want an apprentice who's a veterinarian. Like, we're falconers. Who doesn't want a veterinarian in their back pocket? So I'm like, oh, pick me. I'll be your sponsor, and I, it was a bad deal. She's a wonderful lady, and I think that at some point in her life, she's still going to make a really good falconer. But the mistake that I made, there's a lot of guys or gals that will require somebody to follow them, tag along on some hunts for a certain amount of time, where with her, I felt like she checked so many boxes off the bat. I skipped that. And so we trapped her a bird. She trained it. She was doing really good with it. She had killed a few squirrels with it. And then because she's a veterinarian and a girl mom, and the girl is involved in a lot of sports, and she's a wife, and,
stopped hunting.
She stopped hunting. Yeah. And so she's calling me and venting about this bird. She's like, she's talking to other people. I could tell because she's using verbiage that somebody else gave her. And she's like, I just don't think this bird has it. I don't think this is a good one. And I was like, look, that bird is giving you what you're putting in it. And if you're only hunting it once a week or once every 2 weeks, that's what you're going to get. So I think you really need to buckle down and try to spend some more time. And maybe I was a little bit too aggressive because I was putting some pressure on her. And it was funny because we would have these tough conversations, and later that day she'd send me a picture of her bird on a fox squirrel. And I'm like, looky there. You get out there, you beat the bush, you make it happen. And so she showed me repeatedly that she could do it when she put the time and effort out there. But, in retrospect, I should have made sure that she had time to be a falconer. She really is going to be a great falconer one day, and I hope that she reaches out. But after one season, she actually decided not to pursue the second year of her on her own, probably from pressure from me, but on her own, she decided to release that bird and not hunt her second season. But I actually texted her recently and said, if you ever need to scratch that itch, you can come out with me anytime you want, and when you get to the point where you got time for this again, I'd like to help you. So, but that was a lesson learned for me. And I do want to sponsor other people, but I'm going to slow my roll a lot. And
yeah, I mean, I think that that was a good note, at least on your part, to end it, or at least, leave it. I shouldn't say end it, but
it ended up being her choice, but off of my suggestions,
Sure.
I think, which is even better yet, I think.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I know, and I've talked about this before also, but like for me, it's just more of a hypocrisy thing. Like for me, I can't justify taking somebody on potentially as an apprentice. Not that I feel like I'm going to have to worry about that anytime soon anyway, but like I won't be able to feel right taking someone on unless I know that I can give them the time that I'm going to expect them to give also.
Sure.
And with as much as I have going on, like I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to be as attentive with someone that I feel like I should be.
Yeah.
And that was given to me. Like I would never ask somebody to do anything that was not asked of me or that I did not do myself, right? So, I mean, I don't know about you, Rich, but I mean,
I'm kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum, which I did meet my sponsor at the meet, but he didn't have a bird. He hadn't had a bird for a couple of years, and he didn't have a bird the entire time I had my apprenticeship with him. But he was a great guy, had all kinds of information, anytime I needed anything, so I could just call him. He did come out and hunt with me a few times, and actually jinxed me on my first free flight, honestly. Which my bird ended up staying out in the woods overnight after he
there.
jinxed me. So, yeah. But, he was a paper sponsor, but I don't know if that's kind of where I, overcompensate to go to all the meets and see what people do and learn from everybody else, so.
Yeah. Well, which we all know is a whole other whole other can of worms too.
For sure.
Because sometimes not every source you're going to see is going to be a good potential source, at least not for your own situation, potentially also. So,
yeah.
But, no, I think there's a lot of cool stuff discussed, in this conversation. And I mean, overall, is there any other thoughts on this particular subject that you want to share before we kind of call this good or anything? Or
Not that I can think of.
I mean, I know we could probably sit here and just go around and around in circles on this particular topic anyway, but I don't know if we should. It's probably best that we don't.
The whole apprenticeship process?
It's just this whole, this line of conversation, because I don't know. Like I said, we've already covered.
It's a touchy subject. For sure.
Yeah, we've already covered the other stuff, and believe it or not, we're already about an hour and a half in on this one. So it's like,
good.
We could probably spend another hour and a half alone just talking about the opinionated aspect of whether you should, just because you can, should you, in this type of situation. And unfortunately, I really think that, at least for me personally, I guess I'll leave it from my point of view anyway. I'll end on the sentiment of I wish more people thought longer and harder about, whether or not they should.
Yeah.
And I understand that nobody wants to kill somebody else's dream or anything, but I'm a firm believer in there's a right time and a right place for a lot of things. And
Yes.
Agreed.
And as you so adequately, in my opinion, put it earlier, Rich, patience is a virtue. And so, someone wants something bad enough, doesn't have to happen right then and there necessarily.
No. And it's definitely, the juice is worth the squeeze. Those 2 years of just going around and seeing what everybody else is doing and researching just helped me, be a better falconer, I think. So you jump right into it and you have crappy gear, or, your stuff isn't up to par and you end up losing birds or killing birds, possibly, or
Look at the friendships,
Exactly.
Once you put the work in. Today, we all went in there and blitzed a Dachshund field trial, and there was 5 or 6 Falconers in there, and we were all. That's the stuff that makes it worth it.
Well, yeah. Without these types of things, would we have ever developed a relationship potentially with the Teddy Maritzes and the Mick Browns and all these other people of the world?
Yeah.
I would have never met any of these people otherwise. Would have never met you guys probably otherwise.
And you know what? Those two names that you just mentioned, I mean, not to keep rattling on, but they have they have a wealth of knowledge to share with you about falconry and dachshunds. But when you really get to know them, like, they could teach you a lot about life. I mean, just, you know, being a good person. And, there's a lot of good people involved in this sport. And, there's some people that aren't so good involved in this sport.
And that's literally everything in life.
Everything in life. Yeah, literally. That's a good point. But,
yep.
Yeah,
but
pretty fortunate. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, it seems to me at least like there's a lot more good people than bad people involved.
Definitely.
So too. Yeah, without a doubt.
Awesome, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks, man.
should we call this good?
Yeah.
Has it
Good for you.
Has it been kind of a fun happening, or has it been torture?
No, it's been fun for us. I feel bad for the people who are going to think they're going to listen to it thinking it was going to be interesting. And I just hope it was.
I don't ever feel like I can get like a full thought out sometimes, but
I hope everybody that's listening to it was on like a long, boring drive, and maybe it was a little bit better than that.
Yeah, well, you know, once again, I mean, I guess the whole not being able to feeling like you can't get a full thought out versus, you know, starting off at one thought and ending up at a completely different thought,
yeah,
like
for sure.
like Mr. ADHD
Shots fired.
over here.
Wow.
You know,
words hurt.
It's a good balance.
I guess,
it's a good balance to have. Well, thanks again for dinner and for the hospitality.
Yeah, thanks for
Rick,
having us.
and
Thanks for everything you do.
Rich for the company as always, and yeah, man, it's been a good time. Glad we could sit down and do this.
Look forward to hanging out with you guys again at the Dachshund meet.
Yeah.
It won't be long.